And so this morning we're going to study on the worship. And this is my topic this morning: worship Christ on Christmas. Sometimes our aim on Christmas is something else. Something else becomes our object of worship. And we forget that is actually Christ that is to be worshipped on Christmas. And so we have to worship Christ on Christmas and nothing else. And many times, as per the tradition and the culture of our country, sometimes we make objects as something that is something that we highly adore. And we also see that Christmas trees and Santa Claus and all these things become so much fascinating towards for us that we start prioritizing them, we start idolizing them in our lives. But that is not the center, that's not the core message of Christmas. The core message of Christmas is Jesus humbling down himself, coming, taking a human form, coming in flesh to dwell among us and to become the ultimate sacrifice. That is the message of Christmas. And this morning we're going to study about how the Magi's, they came and they worship this baby Jesus, and the whole aspect of worship that comes from the sense of worship that comes from this experience that they had by just meeting Jesus. We're going to study on that this morning. But before that, let's have a little background study of this passage. And I want you to all turn your Bible to Gospel according to Matthew chapter 2. And Matthew is one of those Gospels that explains the whole narrative, the birth narrative, in a very nutshell, yet in a very clear form. And we see it's very unlike other Gospels, because Matthew, we call 4 Gospels as 4 windows to look at the Gospel, to the life of Jesus. And so this is one of the windows that we can see the life of Jesus and what actually happened. So this is the maximum that you can hear, or let's say the most you can hear about the birth narrative of Jesus in the Gospel according to Matthew. And Matthew chapter 2 verses 1 through 12 is our focus of study this morning. Matthew chapter 2 verses 1 through 12. And I'm going to read it quickly so that we all are on the same page even as we go further. And it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. Now he's asking the chief priest from his palace. Verse 5, in Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. It's talking about Bethlehem, it's the least. For out of you will come a ruler. It's talking about Jesus. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Verse 7, when Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star was appeared. Verse 8, he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. Now he's telling the Magi that you go and find out so I can also worship him. Verse 9, after they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. It's talking about Jesus. Verse 10, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Wow, what a word, overjoyed. Verse 11, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. And so we see that the Magi's are coming all the way from the east. And we have just read the passage. Now I want to give you a quick background of what are some of the misconceptions that we have about this story. And one of the misconceptions, the top one, is that there were 3 wise men, which is not true biblically. There were not three wise men. Bible says there were wise men that came from the east. But because they brought three gifts, so it corresponds to having three wise men coming all the way from the east and presenting three gifts, because gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So it's relate, and so they have made it that way, that maybe there were three wise men who offered three gifts, but it's not true biblically. The scholars say that there were wise men, men, it's plural men, and so there were wise men who came from the east, and so this assumption is totally wrong. Then there were only three. There were actually more in number. And the next misconception that we have, which is commonly found, is that when they reached the child to worship him, the child was in a manger, maybe in a crib or a cradle or something like that, which is again not true. Because by the time they had reached the baby Jesus was already about an year and a half or 2 year old. Because when you see that the king was very angry, he was really disturbed, he sends his soldiers to kill the baby Jesus. And he says that, go and kill all the babies of 2 years or under 2 years of age. And so that means that if he's ordering them to kill all the babies of 2 years or under 2, that means Jesus was about 2 or under 2 already. So it's not true that when they visited Jesus was in a manger or no. I mean, Pastor Debo's daughter is going to be 2. She's turning 2 very, very soon. And so you can imagine how big she is as a baby. And so she's not an infant, but she's definitely a baby, but she's not an infant anymore. And so some of the infancy gospels in the 14th century, they have spread this kind of a wrong teachings that this is what happened. But this is not true, because when it says in verse, if you read with me, it says in verse 11, on coming to the house. It does not say on coming to the manger. It says on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. That means they saw Jesus, who was about 2 years old, in the lap of Mother Mary, or maybe with Mother Mary. And they were overjoyed, it says. They were overjoyed to see that. And this is one of the misconceptions. And one of the artists, his name is James Tissot, he has described his imagination of the Magi's coming that way. And he says there were definitely not 3 wise men, which is not possible. Why? Because of the precious gifts they were carrying needed some protection. You see? And we're going to study now where they're coming from. Because my topic, my focus is about how they worship Jesus. That's my core focus this morning. And how we can draw some insights from their experience of worshiping Jesus into our lives. But I want to quickly give you some background historical facts about what actually happened. So we see these wise men now. There are not 3 here. There are many coming, if you see. And if they have to reach the baby Jesus or Bethlehem, it might have taken about an year and a half or 2 for them to reach all the way from the east to the town of Bethlehem. This, again, it's historically, and that's what the scholars say, that because whatever thousands of miles coming from the east to the town of Bethlehem might have taken about that much. And so for them to travel that long, they definitely need like a caravan, they're traveling and in groups, a group traveling together, because they definitely are carrying some precious gifts. I mean, if they're carrying gold, you cannot travel in desert without any protection, and it's all Middle East coming. And I'm going to tell you where exactly they're coming from. And for them to come all the way that much, they need rest in between. They have to face all the challenges that can possibly come in their journey to make it all the way to Bethlehem. And so they're covering a lot of distance. And now let's talk about who they are. Now, these wise men are actually, the word comes from magoi. That's a Greek word which means magician or an astrologer, or it also can mean wise man. And so they are not somebody who has to be taken for granted. There's some really elite community, and they come from a very high post. And they can also be called as diplomats or some cabinet minister in our language. And they were they were actually some leading figures in the religious courts in that country from the east. And so we cannot call them that they were just like that. They're called wise men for a reason. And if you see in the time of Daniel, when Daniel interpreted a dream, the king appointed Daniel over the magi of the time, over the magicians, and they still existed at that point also. Now we are dealing with some history right now. And so Daniel was appointed as a leader because he interpreted the dream of the king. And so he was appointed as a leader over the magicians, over the magi of that time. And so this was a tribe that came from the Parthian Empire. Now, I want you to have a close look at the map here. Now, if you have to really study this, you can look whatever screen is comfortable for you. Now, this is a Roman Empire, the whole Israel. Now, this Roman Empire existed at that time because they had overtaken all these areas. And this is where Jerusalem lies in the corner down. And this is where Bethlehem is around that time, that part of the map. And if you see the white part, that is actually the Africa. It's all Africa on the white. This is beneath Jerusalem. And on the right side, you see the white part, which is just in between Jerusalem and Parthian. That part is all the Middle East, the Saudi Arabia. And then the Parthian Empire is all the Persian kingdom, the Iran and Iraq of this time. And so you can imagine they're coming all the way from Parthian Empire. Now there are some scholars say that they perhaps have come from down somewhere in the white region that you see under Nabatean kingdom. About that part, they must be coming because of the gifts they were carrying had some particular herbs and some raisins that might have come from that region of Saudi Arabia. But then Bible said that they came from east. Now this looks more like a south of where they came, but east is more of the Parthian Empire. And now there is also historical relation between Parthian Empire and the Roman Empire. Now, when we study about the King Herod, he actually was not a Jew. He was not a Jew, but he was yet the king of Jerusalem, of Israel that time, and he was appointed as a king. Now, when you study about his life, his father is an Edomite and his mother is Nabatean. And so he's not ethnically, he's not Jewish. But because there was this time when Romans were fighting against the Parthian Empire, and he is the one who was sent by the Roman Empire to fight against Parthian, and he apparently wins the battle. And so the Roman government appoints him as a king, and ever since he was a king of Jerusalem, ever since. And because he's appointed, now he's very insecure about his position, because he's ethnically not Jew. And on top of that, now there are these wise men coming from the Parthian Empire, from which he just invaded a couple of years ago, or at some time, and he invaded Parthian and won. And now from this Parthian Empire coming the wise men. And they're saying, have you seen the king of the Jew? Because we have come to worship him. Now he is threatened. His position is threatened. And his whole life is under risk now, because there is somebody coming and they're not going to lie, because they're wise men. They're wise men, they're astrologers. They study the celestial bodies in the sky. They study stars. They tell your future. They are like very wise. I mean, they have something in their head, that they're, and so they're coming all the way from the Parthian Empire to all across Saudi Arabia, landing in Bethlehem just to tell and just to find this baby Jesus. And so they're saying, where is this baby child that we are looking for? See what exact words they're saying. Where is this one who has been born the King of the Jews? In verse 1, we saw his star when it rose. Where did they see the star? They saw the star in their kingdom, in that Iran and Iraq where they have come from, the current Iran and Iraq. And they're coming from there. They're saying, we saw the star there. And some of the translators say that it was not actually a star. It was some kind of a Shekinah glory that they saw. The Shekinah glory, that of Jesus. The same glory that the shepherds saw when the angels appeared. And it said the light was shone on them, and they were terrified to see the light. And that Shekinah glory carried them from that place all the way to Bethlehem. And they covered a long distance to reach Bethlehem. just to worship this baby Jesus. Amen. Can you imagine? They are such, um, like of high position, yet they want to worship this Jesus who they have never met. This Jesus who has never done anything for them. And we're going to talk about it shortly. And so, you know, so and he is totally threatened about him. Then the next move he's making is he's asking his chief priest to look and confirm, is this really true what they're saying? And they have come in like troops, like, and they have like huge, like they're coming, and just imagine they're coming and entering the palace and asking, where is this baby Jesus? We have come to worship him because we have something to offer him. And so the whole point of worship, see, like they have covered a long distance just to worship. They only have one aim. They only have one thing in their mind, that they want to worship Jesus. Wow, what a beautiful thought it is. Just to think about it. They're coming from east just to worship Jesus. And so uh, uh, James Tissot, he says that this is the closest I can think of when I think of wise men coming and journeying through across valleys and mountains and coming and reaching baby Jesus just to worship. But the only one mistake they made was they reached King Herod and they're asking about who this Jesus is. Now, this whole episode of worshiping Jesus, coming all the way from there, traveling that far, thousands of miles just to meet Jesus, is a beautiful experience, And sometimes we also come from different uh, uh, experiences of our life, different walks of our lives. Some of our students, some of our are working. We have to sometimes just coming to the church becomes a big burden for us. I was telling this morning that there are few people who are seen in church only thrice a year. Once they're seen on a Christmas day, once they're seen on an Easter day, and third they're seen on a New Year day for a New Year service. And so otherwise they're not seen in the church. Yeah? And so, anyways, we're not trying to say anything against them. But what I'm saying is sometimes coming to church and just having fellowship becomes a big burden for all of us. But look at this wise man. Their only aim is to worship Jesus, who they have never met. But they have only studied about through a star. And they are coming to worship Jesus. Some of the lessons that we can learn from this is, and see, just before that, it says that when they reached home, they saw Jesus with Mother Mary and they were overjoyed. Wow. They were overjoyed. Some translations say there was a joy unspeakable. They had this joy in them that they could not express. They were overjoyed because they had something to do with the baby Jesus. The first thing that we can learn from this worship is, because it says that it says that they opened their treasures and they bowed down and worship him. The word is written, they fell face down. Wow. Look at these people who are so highly educated. They are cabinet ministers of their place, of their country, and they're coming and falling face down to worship Jesus. And for us, sometimes just to lift our hands is a big burden. No, yeah, I'm just tired. It's fine. Let's just stand, Oh, no, let me just open my mouth. I'm so tired. I spoke too much. Yesterday I had a class. I had a paper presentation or whatnot. I can't sing. But look at them. They have traveled. They must be so tired. My goodness. They're traveling so long. And they must be so tired and they're coming and falling. Oh, this is the one. I remember we were doing a camping in the state of Manipur. And the place is called, let me recollect quickly. Okru, there's a village event. It's called, it's actually a very biblical name also. I forgot. So we went there to camp. And I remember we walked in the extreme dense forest for about 4 hours just to reach this riverside to do camping. And we stayed there the night. And it was haunting. Because all the sounds and the noises at night, and here we are sleeping, and then everybody's fighting for, no, I don't want you in the corner. No, you in the corner. No, because the tent was short, and we had to accommodate about 8-9 guys in the small tent, and like nobody wants you in the corner because they're, because snake or something can go inside or something can bite their leg or something, and everybody wants you in the middle. And I ended up being in the corner at the end because I was the first one who wanted to be in the center. And slowly, I was in the center and I'm pushed and I'm pushed and I'm pushed and I'm in the corner finally. So I woke up and I found myself in the corner. Anyways, it was a very memorable and adventurous night for all of us. And then the next day we moved back to this village because from the village we had walked down in the riverside for 4 hours. Now we are coming back and we are short of water. There is no water. All our water bottles are empty. No can, nothing. No, we were carrying all the things with us, but now we are all empty. And we are walking. We are so tired. I cannot walk. And one of the guys, we had to carry him. We got turns to carry him on our back. He was from Chennai, from south of India, and he was a skinny man, but very energetic for the Lord, very passionate, but very weak. And some of us had to carry him. Gosh, like I said, no water. How will we carry you? Bro, no, carry me. He said, Caleb. And then we had to carry him turn by turn. And all of us, finally, as we were approaching the village, still about an hour to go. Still about an hour. And that is called we were approaching, by the way. And to our surprise, we saw this fountain of water. I said, wow. We just ran like crazy, as if we have never drunk water in our life. We ran to this fountain just to grab this little, and like how much can you drink, Yeah, I mean, we all are thirsty, but how much can you drink? We can do this much, about a few ml we can drink. And we drank, we filled our bottle, we were like, we were so happy. Finally, that's the kind of we were overjoyed to see the water fountain there. Overjoyed. There was this joy gushing out. Come on, run, guys, there's water there. We were running just to grab that little glass of water. And I was imagining this magi, when they saw Jesus, baby, they were overjoyed as if they had traveled so far just to meet this little baby. And the worship, and when you have the desire that pushes you forward, your worship becomes all the more powerful. Your worship becomes all the more meaningful. And that's why I always say, what brings you to church every Sunday? What was the thought that brought you to church this morning? What was it one desire that you had that brought you to church this morning? And this desire of them to worship Jesus was so beautiful. And the first thing that I was learning from there is worship involves sacrifice. There is some kind of sacrifice that you have to make to worship Jesus. And I don't know this morning what kind of sacrifice you made to be able to come here and worship Jesus. And their sacrifice was huge because they're coming far from thousands of miles away just to meet. And it does not matter how much you have to travel. It does not matter what were the hurdles like for reaching to worship Jesus. And then they say, and the response is, who is this baby who's born the King of Jews? Where is he? Oh, where is he? I want to see him. Where is he? And they're asking like crazy, like lunatic, like they're asking everybody, where is he? Because we want to worship him. See, their worship did not depend on what Jesus had done for them, because Jesus had not done anything for them yet. He was still a baby. Jesus did not die for them yet. Jesus did not heal them yet. But their worship was not based on what he has done for them, but who Jesus is. And when your worship becomes, and it depends on the very personification of Jesus, for a very person of Jesus, who Jesus is, then your worship becomes all the more real. But it's not based on selfish motives. Oh, because Jesus has done this, let me worship him. Oh, because he gave me a job last week, okay, let me go to church this week. No, that's not worship. That is not worship. That means your worship is based on some things. And that's why you came to the church today. But when your worship only depends on who Jesus is and how great he is, what he has said and what you have read about him. When your only worship depends on it, your worship is entirely different. Your worship has that breakthrough that it brings in your life. And this is what we learned from the life of Magi. They came all the way. They have never seen, they have never heard, they have nothing. They are only coming because they know, because they have read about Jesus through the stars. And they're coming just to see and worship that Jesus. And the second thing that we can learn is worship involves giving. What do you have to offer Jesus? They did not come empty-handed. I mean, they're not coming all the way thousands of miles empty hand. No, they had some things to give to Jesus. Now let's discuss about what we can possibly give to Jesus. Now they had three gifts. The first gift they had was a gold, and the second gift they had was frankincense. The third was they had was myrrh. And when we see this gifts represents something huge. When they gave gold, they were representing royalty to Jesus. That Jesus, you're going to be royal. Because my Jesus emptied himself so that we can become rich. Now they are representing, they're giving gold to this Jesus, and they're saying, this is a sign of royalty. This is a sign that you will be great. And Luke chapter 1, verse 132 says, he shall be great and he shall be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. He shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Prince of Peace, the Everlasting Father, the Mighty God. And that's what gold represents. He said, God, Jesus, oh baby Jesus, you're going to be royal. You're going to be the King. You're going to be the Prince of Peace. You're going to be royal. You're going to be royal priesthood. You're going to be Wonderful Counselor. And here we offer you gold to you, Jesus. And they wanted to offer him gold all the way, coming with all the protection they could possibly, keeping it away, keeping it safe, because this is for my baby Jesus. Oh, no, nobody should have a bad eyes on it. No. We have to keep it safe. Guys, oh, they must have told all the troops and everybody, guys, let's keep it safe because this is for the baby Jesus we are carrying. We have covered thousands of miles just to give this little gold to baby Jesus. And then they had frankincense, which symbolizes priestly office, that Jesus is our high priest, somebody who intercedes, sitting at the right hand of the Father, intercedes for all of us. And even now, Jesus intercedes for you and me, for me. And this is what frankincense, the aroma, the beautiful incense represents, that he's our high priest. Jesus is our high priest. Frankincense was used to worship the king at that time. And these wise men recognized the sinless deity of Jesus that was deserving of the worship, that Jesus deserved that worship, that Jesus, you're going to be beautiful, like a beautiful aroma, like this frankincense. What do we have to offer him this morning? The third thing that they offered was myrrh. Now myrrh was something, it was like an embalm. They would embalm the dead body, with that. They would apply it on, even when Jesus was crucified and he was taken down into that and kept in the grave, the disciples applied this myrrh, and it was a symbolism of something that is applied on a dead body. Now, it was a prophetic, if you see, it was prophetic that they offered myrrh. Now, who gives myrrh to a baby, a newborn baby? Isn't it very ironical? Well, if a baby is born nurtured in some family, would you go and give like a myrrh or something like, the baby, okay, when you die, please apply this on. You wouldn't do that. Why would you do that to a baby born? But here these wise men are offering myrrh, and they're prophesying that Jesus, you're going to die for the whole humanity. Because they were wise. And if you read, let's read Mark chapter 15. Mark chapter 15, verses 22 and 23. And we read this word, the word myrrh is mentioned there. Mark chapter 15, verses 22 and 23. And it says, they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh. Notice the word there, myrrh. But he did not take it. Now, myrrh was also used to sustain the body. A body which is about to die, maybe giving a little myrrh could sustain a little or prolong the death a bit to some extent. Now, Jesus refused that offer for him to prolong his death a little bit. No. See, it says, then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. My Jesus did not taste that myrrh to numb his pain. It was used to numb the pain for a while, but he rather wanted to taste the death itself for all of us. He chose not to take that myrrh to numb the pain that he was going through, but he wanted to rather choose death itself. And this is what myrrh was used. And now these magi, they are offering this myrrh to Jesus as a symbolism that you're going to die one day, Jesus. And this myrrh will be offered and will be applied on your body. And then now, church, I mean, a lot can be spoken, a lot can be preached from this place, but the point is, what are we taking back this morning? What is our focal point this morning is about worship. How do we worship Jesus? Why do we worship Jesus? The Magi came all the way from there just to worship. Their only focus was worship. Now, the king also wanted to worship, by the way, but he was trying to be deceptive. The king said, "Oh, please go and look for the baby Jesus so I can also go and worship." No, he intended to kill Jesus. He was not intending to really worship. But this Magi, on the other hand, really wanted to worship Jesus. See? And now, see, the transformation point in their life is that the king said, now they should have obeyed what the king said, right? He's the king of Rome. He's a Roman king, Herod, and they should have obeyed the king by informing him about where Jesus was born and where he is placed, which home he is. But they chose to disobey king and to obey what the angel told them in the dream. And it's Bible says, what it says, see in the last verse it says, and they said, they having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. They took another route and they returned to their country. Had they gone back to King Herod, they would have killed Jesus. But they chose, see the change that came into their life is that they disobeyed the king just to obey the ultimate king. Amen? And so what do we have to offer this Jesus this morning? And if you say that, oh, I cannot sing, brother, I don't have a voice to sing, but do you have words to speak? You have words to testify about Jesus. You have words to adore this Jesus. You have words of glory and of praises unto Jesus. You have words. You may not have notations to sing. You may not have the right notes to sing, but you have the words to speak. But you have a heart to worship. How about that? You may not have the right outfit to, or you may not be very presentable in front of everybody, but you have the hands to lift. You may not have the best instruments to play, but you have the hands to praise God. How about that? What do you have to offer him this morning? We have so much, and we have no excuses this morning. The Magi could have so many excuses, coming all the way thousands of miles, but they didn't make an excuse. What do we have this morning to offer Jesus?